The sun was beginning to set over the small town, casting an orange glow over the streets. John had just finished his evening run and was heading back to his apartment. It had been a typical day. Work, a few errands, and now his usual jog to clear his mind. He had no idea that today would be different, that today his life would change in a way he couldn't even imagine. As John rounded the corner to his building, he heard a strange noise. It wasn't the usual hum of the city or the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. This was different, louder, almost mechanical, like something was coming from the sky. Curious, John slowed his pace and looked up. At first, he thought it was just a plane passing by. But as the object grew closer, he realized it wasn't a plane at all. It was something far more unusual, a sleek, metallic ship descending slowly toward the ground. The ship gleamed under the setting sun, and for a brief moment, it seemed almost peaceful, like something out of a dream. His heart began to race. "What is that?" he muttered to himself. The ship hovered for a moment, suspended in the air as if deciding where to land. The noise grew louder, and before John could react, the ship touched down softly in the open field near his apartment complex, kicking up a cloud of dust. He took a few steps backward, unsure of what to do. His mind raced with questions. Was this some kind of military test, a prank, or something more? Suddenly, the ship's door opened with a hiss, and a figure stepped out. John's eyes widened. It was a woman, but not like anyone he had ever seen before. She was tall, slender, and her skin had an otherworldly hue, pale blue with a faint purplish tint. Her long hair, dark and flowing, moved as if it had a life of its own, shimmering under the last rays of the sun. Her features were delicate, with large eyes that seemed to glow with an emotion John couldn't place. She wore a strange outfit, something between armor and a dress, crafted from materials that didn't seem to belong to Earth. The woman took a few steps forward, her gaze locked on John. For a moment, neither of them moved. It felt as though time had frozen. John's heart was pounding in his chest, his breath shallow as he stared at her. He couldn't tear his eyes away from her. Then, without warning, the woman spoke. Her voice was soft, yet firm, with an accent that was both alien and familiar at the same time. "I miss you so much, my husband," she said. John froze, the words hanging in the air like an impossible riddle. He blinked several times, trying to process what she had just said. Husband. What was she talking about? He didn't even know her. He had never seen her before in his life. For a few seconds, all he could do was stand there, speechless. The woman seemed to wait for some sort of response, but John had none to give. His mind was scrambling, trying to make sense of what was happening. Was this some kind of dream? A hallucination? He finally found his voice. I don't know you," he said, his voice shaky. "What do you mean? I'm not your husband." The woman's expression didn't change, though a hint of sadness crossed her face. She stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "You are him," she said, almost as if she were trying to convince herself as much as him. "We were married once, you and I, on my homeworld. I've waited for you." John took a step back, his mind racing. His heart was pounding so loudly in his chest that it was hard to hear his thoughts. There was something so real about her, something so genuine in the way she spoke, but it didn't make sense. He had never been married to anyone, let alone an alien woman. His life had been normal, unremarkable. He hadn't been to space or met anyone from another world. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice trembling. "This doesn't make any sense. I've never been to your world. I don't even know who you are." The woman sighed, her eyes filled with sorrow. "I understand that you don't remember. It's the way things are. When we were torn apart, you were lost, and your memory was taken. I've searched for you for so long, hoping you'd remember." John was stunned. His mind couldn't keep up with the flood of information. He wanted to run, to escape, but something in her eyes kept him rooted to the spot. Her sadness, her longing. It was like she was pleading with him to believe her. "I don't know what's happening," John muttered, his voice hoarse. "But I'm not your husband. I don't even know you." She nodded slowly, as if she had expected him to say that. "I know it's hard to understand, but I am telling the truth. We were together, once. I was waiting for you to return, and now I found you again." John looked at her, the confusion on his face clear. The situation felt unreal, like something out of a science fiction movie. He had no idea what was going on, but one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. The woman reached out toward him, her hand trembling slightly. "Please, just listen to me. You are my husband. We belong together. I've waited so long to find you." John took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing thoughts. There was something undeniable about her. The way she spoke, the way she looked at him, it felt real. But it couldn't be. Could it? "Look," he said, trying to gather his thoughts. "I don't know what's happening here, but I need answers. Why are you here? What do you want from me?" Her eyes softened, and she stepped back, sensing his fear and confusion. "I only want you, John," she said quietly. "I want to bring you home." John's heart skipped a beat. "Home," he repeated. "What do you mean? Where is home?" The woman smiled faintly, the sadness still lingering in her eyes. "Home is where we are meant to be, and I've found you at last." As she spoke those words, John couldn't help but feel a strange pull in his chest. It was as if something inside him was waking up, something he couldn't explain. He didn't understand it, but he felt it. The alien woman took another step closer, her gaze never wavering from his. "Please," she whispered, "just remember." John stood there, staring at her, unable to find the words. This was impossible, but at the same time, it felt so real. His mind was filled with questions, but one thing was certain: this was just the beginning of something he couldn't yet comprehend. And his life, as he knew it, would never be the same again. John couldn't move. His mind was a whirl of confusion, each thought colliding with the next. The alien woman in front of him had just called him her husband, and though he knew it couldn't be true, something deep within him stirred. His heart raced as he stared at her, trying to make sense of what was happening. Was she lying? Was this some kind of trick? Or was there something more to this than he could understand? She seemed to wait, her gaze never leaving his face. Her eyes, those large, glowing eyes, held an unspoken sadness. She wasn't aggressive or demanding, just lost. As if she had waited so long, and now she was finally looking at the one person who could make everything right. John took a step back, his thoughts in chaos. "I don't know what's going on, but I'm not your husband," he repeated, trying to steady his voice. "I've never seen you before in my life." She didn't seem surprised by his words. Instead, her expression softened. She tilted her head slightly, as if she were studying him, trying to understand why he didn't remember. "I know it's hard to believe," she said gently, her voice soothing, almost musical. "I didn't expect you to remember me right away, but I've been searching for you for so long, John. Years and years." "Why?" John asked, his mind reeling. "Why would you be looking for me? And how did you even know my name?" "I know everything about you," she replied quietly, taking the slow step forward. "You may not remember, but we were together once. You loved me, and I loved you. We were married on my homeworld. But something happened. We were separated, and you were lost." John's eyes narrowed. "My homeworld?" He shook his head. "That doesn't make sense. I've never been to another planet." The woman's face faltered for a brief moment, a flash of sadness crossing her features. She seemed to be searching for the right words, as if trying to find a way to explain the impossible. "You don't remember," she said softly. "I know that. But you were taken from me. We were supposed to be together forever." John's heart clenched. There was something about her, something genuine in the way she spoke, that made him want to believe her. But at the same time, His mind screamed that this couldn't be happening. Aliens? Memory loss. A marriage he had no recollection of. It was too much. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. "I've never been to your world. I've never been married. I'm just a regular guy living in a regular city." The alien woman's eyes softened, and she stepped closer, her movements slow and careful. "I understand how hard this must be," she said. "But the truth is, we were separated. Your memory, it was erased. For your protection. You don't remember me because they made sure you wouldn't." John's thoughts whirled. Who erased my memory? Who would do something like that? The woman took a deep breath, looking down for a moment before meeting his eyes again. "My people, the Elorians, we have the power to protect ourselves by manipulating memories. When you were forced to leave me, your memory was altered. It's a common practice when someone is in danger. They removed all traces of our past together, so you could start over, safe and unaware of what had happened." John's head spun as she spoke. He felt dizzy, like the ground beneath him was shifting. "This sounds crazy," he muttered, stepping back again. "I don't remember any of it. None of it feels real." The woman's gaze was full of sorrow, and her voice softened. "I know it's hard. I didn't want this for you. I wanted you to remember me. I wanted us to be together again. But I had no choice. The people who wanted to separate us, they wouldn't allow it." "Who were these people?" John asked. His curiosity piqued despite his confusion. "What do they want with us?" "They want power," the woman explained. "And they feared our bond. The Elorians are a peaceful race, but we have ancient abilities. Some of us, like me, are capable of powerful connections that transcend time and space. Our bond, our love, it's something rare. And it made us targets." John stared at her, trying to piece everything together. His mind was overwhelmed, but he couldn't help feeling a strange connection to her. Her words made sense in a way he couldn't explain. How could someone who was lying look at him with so much pain in their eyes? "So, what now?" he asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. "What do you want from me?" "I don't want anything from you," she said, shaking her head. "I just want you to remember. I want us to have what we once had. I don't want to keep searching anymore. I've been alone for so long, John. I need you." Her words hit him harder than he expected. Despite his confusion, there was something in her voice, something raw, that made him pause. He had no idea who she was, but he couldn't ignore the pull he felt toward her. There was a connection there. It was like something deep inside of him was recognizing her, even though his mind was still in the dark. John rubbed his temples, trying to clear his thoughts. "I don't understand," he muttered. "Why me? Why are you here now?" The alien woman reached out, her hand trembling slightly. "Because you're the only one who can help me. You're the one who holds the key to everything. The key to bringing us back together." John looked at her, his mind swirling with questions, doubts, and emotions. He wanted to believe her, but everything about this felt impossible. How could he be the key to something so extraordinary? "Listen," John said, taking a deep breath. "I'm not saying I believe everything you've said, but I'll help you. I'll try to understand. I just need time." The woman smiled, a faint glimmer of hope returning to her eyes. "Thank you, John," she whispered. "That's all I've ever wanted. Just a chance for us to be together again." As she spoke, John couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to take a turn he wasn't ready for. He had no idea where this would lead or what the truth really was. But one thing was certain, he wasn't going to walk away from her. Not now. Not after everything she had told him. And somehow, deep down, he knew that this was just the beginning. The days that followed were a blur for John. His world, which had once been so predictable and simple, now seemed to shift and warp around him. The woman, who still claimed to be his wife, remained by his side, and though his mind struggled to make sense of everything, he couldn't ignore the strange sense of familiarity that seemed to grow every time they were together. At first, John tried to maintain his distance, his skepticism running deep. He had never believed in the idea of fate, let alone the possibility of an alien race, memory manipulation, and forgotten lives. But there was something in the way she spoke, something in her presence, that made him feel like he was on the edge of something he couldn't yet comprehend. "You're really telling me we were married?" John asked one evening, his voice quiet but full of wonder. They were sitting on his couch, the room dimly lit by the soft glow of the television. The woman, whose name, as she had revealed, was Lyra, sat across from him. She looked at him with those deep, soulful eyes that seemed to carry a history they couldn't yet share. Lyra nodded, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of the coffee table. "Yes, John. We were married on my homeworld, Eloria. We were part of a tradition there, a rare bond that transcends time. I know it's hard for you to understand now, but I know you feel it too." John shook his head, trying to clear the fog in his mind. "But I don't feel it. Not fully. I don't remember any of it. I don't even know what you're talking about half the time. I'm not from another planet, Lyra. I'm from here, Earth, and I don't remember ever being with you." Lyra's expression softened, and she reached across the table, gently placing her hand on his. "I know it's not easy, John. I can see it in your eyes. But what if there's more to you than you realize? What if this bond is deeper than just memory?" John glanced at her, the warmth of her touch contrasting sharply with the confusion in his heart. He didn't want to believe her. He didn't want to give in to something so unreal. But there were moments, fleeting moments, when he felt something stir within him, a strange sense of recognition, a quiet whisper that seemed to call to him from the depths of his mind. "There are things I don't understand," John admitted, looking down at his hands. "There are moments, when I see you, when I talk to you, and it's like I should remember. It's like a piece of me is missing. But it doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense." Lyra's eyes sparkled with a gentle kind of hope, and she leaned in closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's okay, John. You don't have to remember all at once. Just trust me. I'm not asking for you to believe everything. I'm asking you to let me help you find the truth. Let me show you what we had, what we can have again." John swallowed hard, his chest tight. It was hard to deny the depth in her eyes, the honesty in her words. He wasn't sure what to believe, but there was something undeniable in the way she made him feel. A part of him wanted to run, to escape the confusion, to return to his simple, quiet life. But another part, the part he couldn't ignore, wanted to know more, wanted to understand. "All right," John said finally, his voice strained but firm. "I'll try, but I don't know how. I don't even know where to begin." Lyra smiled, her eyes softening. "We'll start small. We'll start with you. We'll see what comes back." She paused, her smile faltering for a moment. "It's not just about memories, John. It's about us, our connection, the bond we share. You don't need to remember it all at once. Just trust me. Let's see what happens when we spend more time together." The next few days were filled with strange moments. John found himself doing things he didn't understand, things that felt so natural, so right, even though he had no memory of them. One afternoon, he found himself humming a tune he couldn't recognize, something that seemed oddly familiar, as if he had sung it before. Lyra, who had been sitting nearby, looked at him with surprise. "You remember that?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. John stopped mid-hum, his eyes wide. "What? No, I don't. I don't even know where it came from." Lyra smiled softly, as though she had expected this. "You used to sing that to me every morning when we were together on Eloria. It was our song." John's heart skipped a beat. "That's impossible. I've never heard it before." But as the days passed, the moments of strange familiarity began to grow. The more time he spent with Lyra, the more he began to recognize little things, things he couldn't explain. He found himself remembering how she liked her coffee, how she always paused at the window when it rained, as if she was waiting for something. Even her smile, there was something about it that felt like a distant memory, yet it was so vivid, so real. But despite these small pieces of recognition, the doubts lingered. How could this all be true? How could he have lived an entire life with this woman on another planet, only for his memories to be taken away? The more he tried to understand, the more questions he had. One night, as they sat together in his living room, Lyra spoke again. "You don't have to remember everything, John. You don't have to rush, but I need you to know that everything I'm telling you is real. I am who I say I am, and I've always been yours. And you've always been mine." John looked at her, his heart heavy with confusion and longing. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that their love was real. But how could he when his mind was still a blank slate? "I don't know if I'm ready to accept it," he whispered. "But I can't ignore what I'm feeling either. There's something here, Lyra. I feel it, but I don't know what it is." Lyra's hand found his again, and she held it gently. "It's okay. We'll take it slow. Whatever happens, John, I'll be here." And for the first time since she had arrived, John didn't pull away. He let himself feel the connection, the strange pull toward her. Though he didn't have all the answers, he knew one thing. He wasn't ready to let her go. Not now, not ever. The days seemed to stretch out for John, each one filled with more questions than answers. His mind was constantly racing, trying to make sense of what Lyra had said and what was happening to him. He spent time with her, but each interaction left him more confused. There were moments when something deep inside of him seemed to stir, as though a piece of his past life with Lyra was just out of reach. He could feel it, like a whisper just beyond his comprehension. But the memories never fully came. One morning, after another restless night, John woke to find Lyra sitting by the window, gazing out at the city. The soft light of the rising sun cast a warm glow on her face, and for a brief moment she looked peaceful, as though the weight of their past was a burden she was used to carrying. "Good morning," John said softly as he entered the room, his voice still rough from sleep. Lyra turned to look at him, offering a small smile. "Good morning," she replied, her voice gentle, yet filled with a quiet strength. "How are you feeling today?" John shrugged, trying to shake off the feeling of unease. "I don't know. It's all still so strange. Every time I think I'm getting a grip on it, something else happens that just throws me off. I feel like I'm losing my mind." She stood up and walked toward him, her eyes filled with empathy. "I understand, John. I do. It's not easy to accept, especially when your memories have been taken from you. But I'm here with you now, and I'll be here for as long as it takes." John nodded, but he wasn't sure if he believed it. There was a growing sense inside him that he needed more than just words. He needed proof. "Lyra," he began, his voice hesitant, "you keep talking about our life on Eloria, but every time you mention it, I feel this emptiness inside me. It's like something is missing. I need something more, something I can hold on to. I need to know who I really am." Lyra's expression softened, and she reached out, gently placing her hand on his arm. "I can give you something that might help you understand," she said quietly. "I've been carrying this for a long time, waiting for you to remember. But if you're ready, I think it might help." John looked at her, uncertainty still lingering in his chest. "What is it?" Lyra took a deep breath and walked to the small table by the window. She reached for a worn box, the wood smooth and aged. The box was decorated with intricate carvings that looked both alien and familiar, with symbols he couldn't quite recognize. She held it out to him, her eyes full of quiet anticipation. "This is a keepsake from our time together on Eloria," Lyra explained softly. "It's something I've kept all these years, something I hoped would bring you back to me. I think it's time you saw it." John hesitated, then reached out to take the box. It felt heavy in his hands, but not in a physical sense. There was a weight to it, a sense of history that he couldn't ignore. As he opened the box, he found several small items inside. A delicate silver ring, a beautifully woven scarf, and a series of old, faded photographs. He picked up the ring first, examining it carefully. It was simple but elegant, with a smooth, polished surface and a faint glow that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before, and yet, as he held it, he felt a strange sense of comfort. "This was our wedding ring," Lyra said softly, her voice carrying a note of sadness. "When we were married on Eloria, you gave it to me. It's a symbol of our bond, a bond that is unbreakable, even through time and space." John's fingers brushed over the ring, and a flicker of recognition stirred within him. It wasn't a memory, not exactly, but it was a feeling of something that had once been his, something that was now lost but still waiting to be found. He put the ring down and picked up the scarf. It was woven with threads that shimmered in the light, the colors shifting from deep blue to silver to green. It felt warm in his hands, like something that had been wrapped around his shoulders countless times. "This scarf," Lyra continued, her voice trembling slightly, "was something you made for me. You wove it yourself when we were on Eloria. It was our first winter together, and you wanted to keep me warm. You said it would always remind me of your love." John's throat tightened as he ran his fingers over the fabric. There was a sense of familiarity, a quiet comfort that seemed to whisper to him from the past. He could almost picture himself sitting beside her, weaving the scarf with care, the two of them laughing together as the cold wind howled outside. But as soon as the image appeared, it vanished, slipping away like smoke. He felt the sting of loss again, the ache of memories that didn't belong to him. "Why can't I remember?" he asked softly, his voice filled with frustration and confusion. "Why does it feel like I should know this, but I don't?" Lyra's eyes softened with understanding. "Because the memories were taken from you, John. They erased them to protect you. But you were never meant to forget. The bond we shared, it's still there. It's just hidden, locked away. And I'm here to help you unlock it." John set the scarf down carefully, his mind spinning with the weight of everything Lyra was saying. He looked at the photographs next, each one showing moments he didn't remember, but that felt deeply personal. There were pictures of them standing together in beautiful landscapes, laughing at something only they understood, holding each other close as the sun set in the distance. Each photo was a glimpse into a life that wasn't his, or at least a life he didn't remember. But it felt real. It felt like he should remember. "These were taken on Eloria," Lyra said, her voice quiet now, almost reverent. "We traveled together. We saw the stars and the wonders of the universe. And through it all, we were by each other's side." John looked up at her, his heart heavy. "I don't know if I can do this, Lyra. I don't know if I can find those memories again." Lyra's eyes filled with a quiet determination. "You don't have to do it alone. I'm here. And together, we can find our way back. One step at a time." John swallowed hard, his mind torn between doubt and the strange pull toward the woman before him. He wasn't sure how much longer he could keep fighting this, but deep down, he knew something was beginning to change. Something inside of him was waking up. And perhaps, just perhaps, Lyra was right. Maybe it wasn't too late to remember. The morning light filtered softly through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the room. John sat at the kitchen table, absently stirring his coffee as his thoughts drifted back to the photographs and the items Lyra had shown him. His mind felt overwhelmed. Yet something about the strange familiarity of those objects, the scarf, the ring, the photos, seemed to pull him toward an inevitable truth. He could almost hear Lyra's words in his head. "We were married. You are my husband." Despite everything that had happened, despite the confusion, a small part of him wanted to believe her. But there was still so much he didn't understand. Why had his memories been taken from him? And more importantly, who was the enemy Lyra had mentioned? Why were they so intent on keeping him away from her? As he sat lost in thought, the quiet sound of the doorbell startled him. He glanced up, furrowing his brow. He wasn't expecting anyone. He stood slowly, hesitating for a moment, then walked to the door. When he opened it, there was no one there. Instead, a small metallic device sat on the ground, blinking with a soft red light. His heart raced, a sense of unease creeping up his spine. He bent down to pick it up, his fingers brushing the cool surface. It wasn't anything he recognized. It looked like a communication device, but unlike anything Earth technology had produced. Before he could examine it further, he heard a voice behind him. "John." He spun around, his pulse quickening. Lyra stood in the doorway, her expression serious. She had never looked so tense before. Gone was the warmth, the gentle softness she usually wore. In its place was a determination that made John's chest tighten. "Lyra?" John asked, his voice shaky. "What's going on? Who left this?" Lyra took a deep breath, stepping inside. Her eyes were full of worry. "This isn't good," she said quietly, her gaze flicking to the device in his hand. "That's a signal beacon. The enemy has found us." John's mind raced. "The enemy? You mean, who? Who are they?" Lyra's eyes met his, dark and filled with fear. "They are a faction of my people, the Xalvans. They've been hunting me ever since you were taken from me. They want to control the Aelorian legacy and our bond. Our connection is the key to something far more dangerous than I told you." John felt a cold chill settle over him. "What do you mean? Why does this bond matter to them? We're just two people who don't even know each other." Lyra stepped forward, her face inches from his. "You're wrong, John. This bond is not just about us. It's about all of Aeloria. It's about an ancient power, something the Xalvans want to control. And if they succeed, they will destroy everything. I can't let that happen. We can't let that happen." John's breath caught in his throat. "What power? What are they after?" Lyra paused, her eyes dark with a painful history. "The power to manipulate time itself. The power to bend the fabric of reality. The Xalvans believe that if they control our bond, they can unlock this power and use it to dominate the galaxy. If they succeed, they will rewrite history, and no one will be able to stop them." John felt his knees weaken as the weight of her words settled in. The thought of such a vast, dangerous power being in the wrong hands was terrifying. But why had he been chosen? Why him? He was just an ordinary man, living an ordinary life. What role could he possibly play in all of this? "The Xalvans took you from me because they knew that together we could stop them," Lyra continued, her voice trembling with emotion. "You don't remember it, but we were a force to be reckoned with. Our connection. It's not something anyone can take lightly. That's why they erased your memories. They didn't want you to remember who you were, who we were." John shook his head in disbelief. "So they've been hunting you all this time, all because of me." Lyra's expression softened, and she placed a hand on his arm. "No, not just because of you. They're hunting us because of what we can become together. We are the key to stopping them. But if we don't act fast, it will be too late." John looked at the device in his hand, the blinking red light almost mocking him. He suddenly felt the weight of his situation, like he was trapped in a story much larger than himself. Everything he thought he knew about the world, about his life, was now in question, and he had no idea how to change it. "Okay," John said, his voice steadying. "So, what do we do now? How do we fight them?" Lyra's eyes filled with relief. "We need to leave. The Xalvans have likely already sent scouts to Earth. We can't stay here. We'll have to go back to Aeloria, find the heart of our bond, and unlock its power before they do." John felt a lump form in his throat. "Aeloria? But I don't even know how to get there. How am I supposed to?" "You'll know," Lyra interrupted, her voice firm. "We'll do it together, you and me. We've done it before." John stared at her, unsure of what was more terrifying, the thought of facing the Xalvans or the thought of venturing into the unknown, into a world he had no memory of, to fight for something that didn't even seem real. But Lyra's presence was a comfort, her quiet strength pulling him forward, even when his mind screamed for him to stop, to turn away. He had always prided himself on being practical, on understanding the world around him. But none of this made sense, and yet, deep down, he knew that if he didn't trust her, if he didn't trust what they were meant to be together, they would lose everything. "I'm with you," John said, his voice resolute. "Where do we start?" Lyra gave him a small, relieved smile. "We start by running. We start by getting out of here, before the Xalvans find us. But this is only the beginning, John. We have a long road ahead of us." John looked at the device one last time, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. As he turned to follow Lyra, he couldn't help but wonder if he was ready for the journey ahead. But there was one thing he knew for sure. His life would never be the same again. And there was no turning back now. John's mind was a whirlwind of emotions as he followed Lyra through the city streets. He felt like he was walking through a dream, where every step led him further away from the life he had known and deeper into a reality he wasn't ready to face. Lyra walked ahead of him, her movements sure and confident, as though she had walked this path 100 times before. Her presence was comforting, but it also reminded him of how little he truly knew about her or their shared past. The bond between them was supposed to be powerful, something that could change the course of history, but to John, it still felt like a distant memory, a fantasy that he couldn't quite grasp. He glanced at her, trying to keep up with her pace. "Where are we going?" he asked, his voice steady despite the storm of questions in his head. "We're going to the place where it all began," she replied, her voice calm yet filled with a sense of urgency. "We need to reach the ship. It will take us back to Eloria." John's heart skipped a beat at the mention of Eloria. He had only heard stories, fragments of things Lyra had shared with him. But the thought of traveling to another world, one so distant and alien, was overwhelming. How could he possibly leave Earth? How could he leave everything behind to follow a path he didn't remember? "Are you sure I'm ready for this?" he asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "I'm not sure I even know who I am anymore, let alone who I was to you." Lyra stopped and turned to face him. Her gaze softened, and she placed a gentle hand on his arm. "I know this is hard, John. I know it's not easy to accept, but deep down, you already know what's true. You're not the man you were before. You're more. You've always been more. And together, we can stop the Xalvans." John looked into her eyes, searching for the confidence that seemed to radiate from her. It was there, in the way she spoke, in the way she believed in them. He wanted to believe it too, but his own doubts and fears held him back. "But what if I'm not strong enough?" he asked quietly. "What if I can't do what you need me to?" Lyra smiled gently, her thumb brushing over his skin in a reassuring gesture. "You don't have to be strong alone, John. That's why we have each other. I'm not asking you to do this alone. I'm asking you to trust us, trust what we've shared, and trust that we can do this together. We've faced worse before. We can face this." John swallowed hard, trying to steady his breathing. There was something about Lyra's words that reached deep inside him, a sense of security that he hadn't felt in so long. He wasn't sure what the future held, but maybe, just maybe, he could start believing in what she was telling him. With a deep breath, he nodded. "All right," he said, his voice steady. "Let's do this." The journey to the ship felt longer than it should have. Every step John took, he felt like he was walking farther from the man he used to be and closer to a future he could not yet understand. Lyra led him through the city, her pace unwavering, as if she had walked this path countless times before. The streets were quiet, the usual bustle of the city strangely absent, as if the world itself was holding its breath. They reached the outskirts of the city, where the buildings began to thin, and the landscape opened up to reveal a small, hidden dock. John could see a sleek, silver ship resting silently in the distance, its polished surface gleaming under the pale light of the sky. "Is that the ship?" John asked, his voice filled with awe. Lyra nodded. "Yes, it's been hidden here, waiting for us. This is the only way back to Eloria." John's mind raced. The ship looked like nothing he had ever seen before, sleek, elegant, and strangely familiar, as if he had seen it in his dreams. There was a connection, a faint sense of recognition, but it was still clouded by doubt. He had never been to Eloria, never even considered the possibility that he would one day leave Earth for another world. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," John admitted. "I've never been on a ship like that before. I don't even know how to." "You don't need to know how, John," Lyra interrupted gently. "All you need to do is trust. Trust me, trust us, and trust the bond we share. We've done this before. You'll know what to do when the time comes." John took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing thoughts. Lyra's words were comforting, but the fear still lingered. What if they couldn't stop the Xalvins? What if he couldn't unlock the power they needed to defeat them? But as he looked at Lyra, standing before him with a quiet determination, something inside him shifted. He didn't know everything. He didn't even know who he really was, but he knew that the journey ahead was important. It wasn't just about fighting an enemy or saving a world. It was about finding himself. It was about rediscovering the truth of who he was and who he could be with Lyra by his side. Without another word, he walked toward the ship, following Lyra as she led the way. The doors opened silently as they approached, and the interior of the ship revealed itself. A sleek, high-tech cockpit, filled with control panels and glowing lights. Lyra walked confidently toward the central console, her fingers moving swiftly over the controls. "This will take us to Eloria," she said, her voice calm. "It won't be an easy journey. The Xalvins know we're on the move. They'll stop at nothing to find us." John nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he knew one thing. This was only the beginning. The road ahead would be filled with danger, uncertainty, and challenges. But with Lyra by his side, he felt ready to face whatever came next. As the ship's engines hummed to life, John took one last look at Earth, the world he had always known. It seemed so small now, so distant. Ahead of him lay Eloria, a world he had never seen but somehow felt connected to. And with it, the future that was waiting for him, the future he was ready to embrace. With a final glance at Lyra, he sat down beside her in the cockpit, his heart steadying with each passing second. They were leaving Earth behind, but they were moving towards something greater, together. The ship soared silently through the stars, its sleek design cutting through the dark expanse of space. John sat beside Lyra, his hands gripping the armrest as the realization of what they were doing settled deep inside him. He had never imagined he would leave Earth, let alone travel to another world. But here they were, on a journey to a planet he had only heard about in fleeting conversations, and to a life that seemed both impossible and familiar. Lyra sat at the control panel, her fingers moving swiftly over the glowing buttons and levers. Her calm focus contrasted with the storm of emotions swirling inside John. He felt a strange mix of fear and excitement, his mind filled with questions he didn't know how to ask. "How long until we get there?" he asked, his voice breaking the silence. Lyra glanced over at him, her lips curving into a soft smile. "A few days, depending on the route we take. We'll be traveling through a series of wormholes, so it won't be a straight path. But we'll get there." John nodded, trying to steady his nerves. He had never been in space before, never imagined a life beyond Earth. But now, with Lyra beside him, he couldn't help but feel that everything had changed. His past, his memories, and even his identity had been turned upside down. And yet, in the midst of all the uncertainty, he felt a strange sense of purpose. He wasn't sure what it was yet, but he knew this journey was leading him to something important. The ship hummed with a soft, rhythmic pulse, and John's gaze wandered out the window. He saw the stars streaking by, their bright lights stretching across the dark canvas of space. It was beautiful, but it also felt so far removed from the world he knew. Eloria, the planet Lyra had spoken about, seemed so distant and unreal. Yet the more time he spent with her, the more he felt that it was a part of him, a place he was meant to be. Lyra seemed to sense his thoughts. "I know this is overwhelming," she said softly, her voice reassuring. "But you're not alone in this. We've been through so much together, and we'll face whatever comes next as a team." John turned to look at her, his heart swelling with gratitude. "I never thought I'd be here," he said quietly. "I never imagined any of this, but somehow I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be." Lyra's eyes softened, and she reached out, her hand resting gently on his. "You are exactly where you're meant to be. This journey isn't just about stopping the Xalvans. It's about rediscovering who you are. And we'll do that together. You'll remember everything. And when you do, you'll understand why you're the one who can stop them." John nodded, feeling a sense of calm settle over him. It wasn't that he had all the answers. It wasn't that he completely understood the bond between them or the power they held. But he knew that with Lyra beside him, he was ready to face whatever came their way. Hours passed, and the ship continued its journey through the vastness of space. As night fell on their little ship, John found himself standing by the window, staring out at the stars. The silence between him and Lyra was comfortable, the kind of silence that came with trust and understanding. Lyra joined him, standing beside him as they both gazed into the infinite expanse. "You're thinking about Eloria, aren't you?" she asked softly. John turned to her, surprised by her ability to read him so well. "Yeah," he said, his voice quiet. "I just can't imagine it. I've never seen anything like this before. I don't know what to expect." Lyra smiled gently, her eyes warm and understanding. "Eloria is beautiful. It's a world full of history, of ancient power. But it's also a world of love, of family. And it's where we belong." John felt a twinge in his chest at her words. He wanted to believe her, wanted to believe in the world she was describing. But everything was so new, so unfamiliar. How could he be part of it? How could he fit into a world that seemed so distant from the life he had always known? "I don't even know who I am in this world," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't remember anything about Eloria, about my life there. I feel like I'm just lost." Lyra turned to face him, her expression serious. "You are not lost, John. You are more than you realize. The person you were on Eloria, he's still a part of you. And I know that, once you remember, you'll see how much you've always meant to this world. You're more than just a man from Earth. You're a part of something much bigger." John met her gaze, feeling the weight of her words sink into his heart. Maybe she was right. Maybe, deep down, he had always been a part of something greater than himself. He didn't have the answers, not yet, but he was beginning to understand that this journey, this strange, impossible journey, was a path he was meant to walk. The next few days passed in a blur. John spent his time trying to come to terms with everything Lyra had told him. There were moments of doubt, moments where he felt like he couldn't keep going, couldn't face the unknown. But with Lyra by his side, he found the strength to keep moving forward. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the ship began to slow, the stars outside beginning to shift as they entered a new system. Lyra's voice broke the silence, her tone filled with excitement. "We're almost there, John. Eloria is just ahead." John's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment he had been dreading and longing for all at once. Eloria, the place that held the answers he had been searching for, the place that held the key to his past, to their future. As the ship descended toward the planet's surface, John couldn't help but feel a rush of emotions: fear, excitement, anticipation. He was finally going home. He didn't know what he would find there, or if he would ever truly remember the man he had been. But one thing was certain: Whatever awaited them on Eloria, he was ready to face it. With Lyra by his side, they would unlock the power of their bond. Together, they would stop the Xalvans. And together, they would rebuild a future they had once lost.